Hello. I'm not working nights anymore. In fact, I leave for France in 3 days from now. So whatever that may be worth. A lot to me, but I'll definitely bring my camera along and post. So I'm going to do a beer review. And since how St. Patrick's Day is a few weeks away, I was going to go to Ireland from where I was at in France. They have ferries that go there. I got a 12-hour boat ride from there. But I don't know that I'm going to do that, honestly, for reasons I just don't think I can afford it, honestly. I think I'm just going to stay where I'm at, but I may go, I don't know. But here's an Irish red ale made by Great Lakes Brewing Company. What we have here is Conway's Irish Ale. I gotta read it. Great Lakes Brewing Company is in Cleveland, Ohio. Started in 1988 by two brothers, Daniel and I forget the other guy's name. The other brother, Conway. Two Conway brothers. Apparently proud of their Irish heritage. Because they made this beer. It's been around for a while. It's a seasonal beer for St. Patrick's Day. Usually comes out in January, so it's available through the spring. And this beer has won seven awards, I've read. Didn't say what awards, just said it won 7 awards. And they named this beer after their grandfather. They just call him Pa Conway, who was a policeman, Irish immigrant and a policeman. And that's what's on the bottle. An image of him, and looks like a 1920s or 1930s policeman's, maybe 40s, I'm not sure, policeman's uniform, holding a stop sign, well actually a sign that says go. Presumably he was a human stop sign or road traffic light. So they got a little pitch on there about how this is dedicated to him, and they believe that Pa Conway would have definitely approved of this beer. Apparently he liked his beer. So that's cool. I like that. They trying to give tribute to somebody in their family, a fellow beer lover, upholder of the law. And this beer, it is 25 IBUs and 6.3% alcohol, and they tell you the hops and the barley that's in it. I know the barley is quite simple, the grain bill. They use 2-row hops, and to give it body and color and some flavor, they use, I think it's 70 they use caramel malt, caramelized malt, caramel malt at a 70. That's just basically 2-row barley in this. Then they take a portion of 2-row barley and they toast it to give it, the color and flavor. Now, it's worth saying that the caramelized malt does not ferment, but it's usually not much of the grain bill, really, maybe 5%, 10% tops. So that's said about this. If you're interested in exactly what they put in this, they tell you on their website. And this Great Lakes Brewing Company's website. Look this beer up and you'll find out more about it. Alright, 6.3% alcohol. It's been in my freezer for a while, almost froze. And 25 IBUs tells me it's not an IPA by any means. I don't expect it to be very bitter. And it should have an orange color. And this actually got pretty good reviews on ratebeer.com and Beer Advocate. Some people really love it. There's a few people that didn't think highly of it. But all in all, this got pretty good reviews. That said, I've got to tell you, I have done beer reviews, a lot of them, that I have not posted on here because the beer was awful. I mean, I just did one. I like the Imperial Stouts and I like these kind of ales, but the Imperial Stouts I've had are just awful. I mean, I didn't even want to finish the glass of beer. I just, like, yeah, that was it. I didn't finish the beer review. The beer was that bad. Hopefully that won't be the case with this. I hope it's not. That said, also, I plan to get back into brewing. I'm giving it some serious thought. And I can brew the beers I like. I know how to brew very well. I've been brewing since around about 1990. I actually brewed my first beer when I was 20 years old before that. And I know how to brew beer. But I haven't brewed beer in about 13, 14 years. So I think I might buy some more equipment and get back into it. All right, let's see what this is all about. I like the label, it's pretty cool. Got an old-time cop on it. Their grandpa Conway, or just Pa Conway, who liked his beer. Imagine that, an Irish policeman that liked his beer back in the day. It smells like bread. It smells malty. I don't get any hop smell at all. I smell bread. It smells like bread dough, quite frankly. Let's have a look at this Irish red ale. And I'm pleased to see that they didn't put anything funny in here, like grapefruit or, pomegranates or who knows what. They put all kinds of weird stuff in beer. This is just barley and hops and water, from what I've read. And it's got a nice orange color to it. It looks good. Decent head. Nothing spectacular. But then this beer is quite cold. It's got a nice color to it. I will say that. I like the color. And they use 70. When they say caramel malt comes in different, the higher the number, the darker. I think you're not going to, I think like 70 to 80 is about the highest level of toastedness, darkness. You can get it all the way from 20, 30, 40, it's like in increments of 10, up to 70. So this is quite well toasted. And adding caramel malt, it's just toasted. It's all the same malt, 2-row barley. Just a portion of it has been caramelized, and they just toast it. Very similar to how people would toast coffee beans. Very, very similar. And it will give you a different flavor, and it will give it this orange color, as opposed to amber, if they didn't put any of that in. Again, it smells like bread, it smells like pizza dough. But then I've got a bit of a sinus issue going on. A bit of one. Well, let's see what it tastes like. It's cold. I can taste the hops. It's an easy drinking beer. I've got a cold sensitive tooth that just kind of spoke to me a little bit. I went to the dentist today. I'm human. I'm old. I had 2 root canals done a few weeks ago. Ouch, I know. They weren't that bad. Really. This one healed up fine. This one did not. Well, it did. But they did a little work on it today. Hopefully fixes it. And it's a little cold sensitive. The tooth next to it is blah blah blah. So yeah, they said that'll go away. I hope they're right. I'll be drinking my beer out of this side of my mouth till it does. All right, to the beer. Carbonation medium. Mouthfeel, as in how heavy it is, you know, like a very full-bodied beer or a light versus a very light beer. The lightest, I would say, the very lightest drink, I would think would be like seltzer water, and the heaviest drink would be like an imperial stout, very heavy, or Guinness extra foreign stout. That's a pretty heavy beer. The mouthfeel on this is somewhere in between those, leaning a little towards the heavy. Yeah, I gotta do a weird little thing drinking it. I can taste the hops, not overpowering, but it does have a little hops bitterness, sweetness up front. All in all, it's pretty good. I can tell you that right now. I think it's a good beer. It's not an IPA. It is an ale, an Irish ale they call it, but I didn't know there was such a thing, honestly. I'm probably wrong. But in my understanding of history of beers in Great Britain, was they drank porters and stouts, which a porter and a stout, kind of ambiguous, they're kind of the same thing, just a dark ale with a stout being a bit stronger, stouter. But people bend the rules. There ain't no rules, but they bend the recipes. Nobody really followed that. But the lighter ales didn't come around till later on. And maybe that's when Ireland got their own style of ale. But as far as I know, Irish ale is porter and stout. Actually, stout. I could be wrong. And porters came out of London, which porter being just a dark ale for the working class, the porters, working class, which they vary greatly, porters. And I hope to brew some good ones. I used to be able to make some very, very good ones. Let's see if I can pull that off again. I think I can. It's pretty good. In fact, I say it's very good. Oh, if it wasn't so cold. It's got a malty taste that is pretty well balanced by the hops. I will say that. It's got a sweet malty taste that is perfectly balanced. You use the hops to balance that. You know, it's just like brewing beers, like cooking. You know, it's recipes and technique. And you use the hops, the bitterness, which depends upon which hops you use. Also, you can impact the aroma by which hops you use and when you use them. But this is very well balanced. It's almost a 50-50 balance between the hops and the malt here, with the malt coming through nicely, sweet, kind of bready, sweet, and the hops coming through just enough to balance it. Yeah, it drinks pretty easy. I honestly really like this beer. Right now, I like this quite a lot. Wasn't sure I would. I've been buying all these different beers I've never had, just so I could do a beer review, so I can sit and have a beer and talk to somebody. If you haven't figured it out, that's what it's about. I don't know. Sometimes I get people that watch my beer reviews that just find them on the web because they're looking for a beer review. Not too often. There's so many videos on the YouTube. It's those of you that watch this stuff, I'm lucky to have you all, honestly, very lucky. I probably wouldn't have an audience. Well, That's not true. I started that other Christian channel and I let it go. I haven't posted anything on it because I've been working. But I've got a handful of new followers on that one. Oddly, Italians, Catholics, that found it. A pretty good story, too. They said they were praying to God to show, this man said he was praying with his family in Italy, that God would show them how angels appear to people. And they found my story that I remade, which was the first story on this channel, well, my first Christian story, which was about my first encounter with the angels. And they said that was a godsend. They really liked it. So I need to start, I'm making more videos for that. The same ones that are on here, I'll just retell them and maybe repost here. Doesn't cost anything. Back to this beer. It's got I love the color. It could have a little more head to it. I wouldn't give it but then again, it's very cold. And the colder the beer, the less foam. It's got some lacing. I really gotta say I love the color to this. I would even like even a little darker orange, and I intend to do that to make an ale, a very, very dark orange ale that I'm going to bottle condition, and that really gives it a smooth, the head on it, bottle condition, that means I carbonate it with green beer in the bottle, and I leave the yeast in the bottle. And that makes for a really perfectly carbonated beer, but it is, if you don't get it right, if you make a mistake, you will have exploding bottles. And I've learned that. They say to put 5 to 10% of green beer when you bottle it into your beer that you're bottling. And I found putting 3% in works just fine. And no more. I had exploding bottles once, and when they explode, they throw glass all over the place. It could be dangerous. So it's something. I would approach the bottles with goggles on and just open one just to see how they're doing. There's ways to brew beer where you don't have to worry about that if you make sure that the fermentation is completely done before you bottle. Then add your green beer to it, or your krausening. That's the old German way. They krausen the beer. German word for crowning, krausen. The high krausen phase, that's a whole different thing. But when the beer is fermenting and it's really going through a rigorous fermentation, and it gets a big level of foam and scum on top, when it's reached its highest point, that's the high krausen, the high crown phase of the fermentation. Then draw off, usually I draw off 5% of it and put it in the refrigerator in a couple, quart bottles or something, and that will stop the fermentation and it will go dormant. So then I let the other stuff ferment out. All the sugars are fermented out, bottle it up, and I'll take the other stuff out of the fridge and very carefully add 3% to each bottle, and then cork it, cap it, and set it up to condition. And that will reintroduce slowly the fermentation back into the beer in the bottle. And that makes for, in my experience, perfectly carbonated beer that you can't get any other way, in my experience. Close, you can force carbonate and get, if you do it right. I'm talking brewing terms here. This is a very good ale, and I think if it were bottle conditioned, it would be a better ale even. But that's the only complaint. It's not really a complaint because it's not really flat at all, but it could have a little better head on it. Other than that, it's perfect. I mean, I wouldn't have any complaints. Very well balanced between malt and hops. Drinks easy, no harsh flavors. It has character. You definitely get the malt and the hops. I wouldn't say this is a very complex beer to drink. It's pretty straightforward. By that I mean it's. I had one the other night that I made a beer review. One of the ones, an Imperial Stout. I couldn't stand it. I mean, it was expensive too. I didn't even want to finish it. I set it up on a shelf with all the other beers that I don't intend to drink. Probably throw them out eventually. But that was very complex. It had so much alcohol in it, and they aged it in bourbon cask, and it had a lot of flavor to it. But not all that flavor was what I would consider desirable in a beer. Though that said, that's just my opinion, as it is my opinion of this beer. This beer got like a B+, 83%, 84%, a B. They said it was very good, but some people really like this a lot. And that average was brought down by a few people that didn't like it at all. I'd give it a B+ to an A. I wouldn't give it an A+ if it had better foam on it. Maybe if they put a little bit of wheat in it or bottle conditioned it, that would probably improve it. Maybe a tad bit of oats, very little bit of oats, oat malt, malted oat, very little bit of malted wheat. I think it would have made this an even better beer. Top of the morning to you, Officer Conway. He probably would have liked this if he liked his beer. He probably would not have liked my cheesy Irish American attempt at an Irish accent.